It's Penny and the Professor. Here's Penny.
You guys are right. The book is a lot about Bojangles, right? Bojangles is who the key details are about. So you guys all got that right. Good job. His real name is Bill Robinson. And so Bill Bojangles Robinson is the main topic of the text. He's the main character and he's the main topic. It's all about him dancing in different places, meeting different people, pausing to pet a cat, all of those things that he did. He made people happy and he was famous because of it. So what did you notice about some of the illustrations maybe? So I think we could take a little bit more of a deeper look into what's happening in our book by looking at the illustrations, because sometimes that's a good way to learn more. So I wanted you guys to look at pages 11 and 12. So on 11 and 12, there's a place, it says, he danced through a place people called the Skids. So what do you guys notice about what's happening in this picture, in this place called the Skids? What do you notice? Penny, what did you notice? True, you noticed that too? So Penny noticed that people are kind of around a fire, like a barrel with fire in it, because maybe it's cold outside. Okay, what else did you guys notice? What did you notice? Yeah, people are wearing kind of like a little bit older clothes, or maybe some ripped clothes and torn up clothes. There's a soup kitchen. Do you guys remember the soup kitchen in Last Stop on Market Street that CJ and his grandma went to help serve soup and give food to people? And it looks like they're handing out food in a soup kitchen over here. In fact, they're handing out soup. There's bowls, and some kids are getting some soup. And there's a church right in the background there. It looks like there's a pastor or a preacher or somebody standing there talking to people. And Bojangles is dancing right by. So yeah, there's some boarded up windows. Also over here on the corner, I see like boards across the windows, kind of like when CJ saw that when he got off the bus. He said there were boarded up stores or boarded up windows. There's some boards on some of the windows, so maybe those buildings are closed down, or maybe they're just old or broken. Good. So I want you guys to remember that Bojangles, Bill Robinson, was a real person. And Bill Robinson, he really did this stuff, okay? So the book that was written is about a real person really dancing through the streets, and this really happened. So it's kind of like a little bit of a history lesson, which is really cool. And in our book, they actually gave us more information about him. So I'm going to set Penny down right here because it's really cool to learn about Bojangles because he was a real person. And in the back of your book, there's a place called the Afterword. Sorry, this is a squeaky book. Back in the back, there's this part that's called the Afterword, and I'll put some of that up on the board for you. It has like his hat and a cane and some gloves at the top of the picture. It tells us about Bill Bojangles Robinson a little bit. It tells when he lived and that he was known as the greatest tap dancer of all time. Isn't that amazing? And so I'm going to read to you guys this paragraph right here. It says, during the Great Depression of the 1930s, Bill Robinson was the highest paid Black entertainer. He shared his wealth with less fortunate friends and neighbors throughout those hard times. And so he was definitely a giving person and helped his friends and helped people. So in the illustration about the Skids, I think we can learn a little bit more about what's going on there and how Bojangles was a part of helping people by noticing those pictures of people who needed food or needed warmth or needed new clothes, and the soup kitchen and everybody helping to provide what they needed. So I think that we can learn a little bit more about that. It says here, there's an article that I found online that says Bill Robinson Bojangles lived during a time in history called the Great Depression, which we just saw in this book. And I know the Great Depression is so long ago, you guys were not alive. I was not alive during the Great Depression, but it reminds me of stories my grandma used to tell me because she was a little girl during the Great Depression. And the Great Depression was a time when all of the world, America and the rest of the world, like we had trouble like getting food and getting what they needed. Something called the stock market crashed, which you guys wouldn't know what that is, but Maybe some of you would, but the stock market crashed, and that was a big deal because people couldn't get what they needed. And so my grandma told me stories about them standing in long lines, even to just get sugar for their family or to get flour. And they had rations of just, you know, a little bit for you and a little bit for you and a little bit for you, so that everybody could share and have what they needed. And so here's a picture of a line from the Great Depression, and it says, during the 1930s, much of the world faced harsh economic conditions. Many people were out of work, hungry, or even homeless. Some people say that now during COVID is a little bit like the Great Depression, because there are lots of people out of work, or like when COVID first happened, a lot of businesses shut down. You guys were like little, right? You were little kids. And so the Great Depression is kind of like COVID in that people were out of jobs, they're out of work, they're having trouble getting businesses running again and getting things up and going again. Things are super expensive. We have to share things. Instead of like sugar, people are sharing things like going to find toilet paper at the store sometimes was really hard in the last few years. So it could be a little bit likened to that. And when somebody does something fun or interesting or special, like Bojangles, dancing and trying to make people happy during that, it's just a really great thing. And so that did happen back in the day. And so it says, now that we know a little bit more about the challenging times that Bojangle lived in, we can understand Rap Tap Tap a little bit better, because it gives us a little bit of a piece of information about true history, which is really cool, you guys, when we read these books. So I'm going to read that part again in the afterword and see if you kind of get more information for yourself now that you know a little bit about the history and about the times that Bojangles was living in. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, Bill Robinson was the highest paid Black entertainer. He shared his wealth with less fortunate friends and neighbors through those hard times. How did Bojangles help during the Great Depression? And why was he able to help people? So in the discussion today, I want you to share your thoughts on that. How did Bojangles help people during the Great Depression, and why was he able to do that? Tell us your thoughts in the discussion today. Can't wait to hear from you. Have an amazing day.